I remember having all the butterflies before God sent me to Ghana, Africa for a mission trip of a lifetime. And I also remember something my husband said that put those butterflies in their place. The safest place to be in life is in the center of God's will. And I really believed that he was sending me to Ghana, and I'm so glad he did. Hi, I'm Erica on Spirit 105.3 with my friend Deb from King's School. She's an amazing woman. She just came back from Kenya with a group of fantastic King students. This is not her first rodeo, but boy, was it an adventure. Deb, welcome to the show. It's such an honor having you here. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks a lot for having me. This is super fun.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this. You got home about a month ago from this unbelievable adventure. Let's start at the beginning. What were you all up to?
Well, we went to Nairobi, Kenya for the first half of our trip. And then the second half was a little town called, well, not little, but a town called Kakamega, which is in the western side of Kenya. So in between, we took a 13-hour bus ride from Nairobi to Kakamega. And I took 25 juniors and seniors from King's High School, along with 6 chaperones, parents and staff. So there was a team of 31 of us.
Wow. And what was your mission?
The mission, so King's Schools, and this is something I've loved about King's Schools, and I got to do it when I was at King's, but King's Schools takes these mission trips, we call them serve and learn trips.
Wow.
The goal is, well, there's a lot of different aspects of the goal, right? But the goal is to serve and then also to learn from people, different communities, different cultures, to learn about God, to see God, all the things. So that's the goal. And King's takes these trips every spring break. There's a local trip, a couple international trips. But yes, we got to go to Kenya, which was really fun.
How do you feel when these students sign up?
Well, I feel jazzed. First of all, I think the students, you know, when we advertise Africa, the students have this idealized image of what that means. You know, you think safaris and
giraffes,
lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And so they think, what a great adventure. So I'm not sure they even know what they're signing up for. And then on the other hand, parents are way more apprehensive. Like, are you kidding? We're not sending our child to Africa. You know, pick anywhere else but Africa.
And yet it's this huge opportunity to trust the Lord for the students, for the chaperones, for the parents. And let's just say, not everything went as expected on this trip. I find in my life all the time, God works outside my comfort zone. I'm sure you have felt that way too, Deb. What happened?
Okay, so we made it to Nairobi. We were traveling with 62 suitcases.
Wow.
And so because when we go, we bring so many things to donate. So that was awesome. By the grace of God, all 62 suitcases made it. We all made it in one piece. Traveling was easy. First couple days, awesome. We got to spend time in the slums. We saw hundreds of kids and ministered to hundreds of kids. It was so perfect, actually. And I was thinking, I mean, this is a big group. And so for everything to go completely smoothly was like, yes, God, we're on it. We're doing this. This is your will. This is your calling. You've brought us here for this great mission. Anyways, day four, we were in Kakamega. So we had come off the heels the day before of this really long bus ride. Kids were pretty tired, whatever. Day 4, we spent the whole day ministering in different schools, and it was awesome. We did presentations. We played with the kids. We danced with the kids. We all had a lot of energy. We were looking good. We were ready to go. And around 4 p.m. that night, we went back to our hotel just to freshen up, clean up, get ready, because we were going to go back to a children's home that we were there to serve. So the children's home has about 80 kids in it. Those kids were so excited. This would have been the first time they saw us. They had prepared this giant meal for us. They had all these presentations for us, and we were excited. So we went back to the hotel. We were just going to an hour and a half, 2 hours to freshen up. And 3 of our kids said, Deb, we don't feel very good. And I was like, no worries. We had a long trip yesterday. We're exhausted. You're probably dehydrated. You know, like the mom mode went in, you know, here's some water. So we said, well, we'll have one chaperone stay back with the 3 kids. Right before we left, one of those 3 started throwing up. We were like, oh, poor buddy, you know, but we're going to be okay. Get a nap. So we head to the Home of Grace. and it's a 10-minute bus ride. We're in this big bus. And when we get there, there's one other kid that says, Deb, I don't feel good. I was like, okay, bummer. Okay, so I get him to the side. I get him some water. We get all of our kids, our whole team situated. Our Home of Grace children, all 80 of them are there. They're dancing. They're loving on us. They're so excited to do these presentations. So our team is sitting under these tents, and the Home of Grace kids, these beautiful African children, are dancing for us. And meanwhile, I'm with this one student who's now throwing up in the bushes. Well, 2 more kids come and join me. And so now I have 3 kids throwing up in the bushes.
They're going down like dominoes.
I have
Deb.
3 kids back at the hotel who now I've gotten word that they're also throwing up. And you know what? I'm actually a super chill person, and I do well in these moments. So I'm like, no worries. I said, let's get a van. Let's get one of our security guards. I'm going to take these 3 kids back to the hotel. Yeah. So without anyone even noticing what's happening, meanwhile, the show is going on, I take these 3 kids, we get in the van, and I don't know if anyone's ever been in third world traffic. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just chaos. Our van breaks down halfway to the hotel in the middle of the street, and literally smoke is pouring out. One of our girls, high schoolers, like, I've seen this before. The van's about to explode. We have to get out. She's freaking out. But they're all 3 very sick, too.
Sure.
So we get them out. We're in the middle of this crazy traffic, and we're looking around like, what are we going to do? I got to get these 3 kids back, because they are like, they're feeling it. Me, these 3 kids, and our security, one of our gals, we cram into a tuk-tuk, which is basically meant for 2 very small, petite people.
Oh, my word.
We cram into a tuk-tuk. There's no room for our other security guard, who literally just has to run behind us all the way back to the hotel. So we get back to the hotel. These kids make it into their rooms. They're vomiting. 3 other kids are there vomiting. I get a text as soon as we walk to the hotel. 3 more kids down back at the Home of Grace. I text the team. I said, wrap it up. Get everyone on the bus. This is not looking good. No. I'm like, this isn't just like an isolated incident.
Yes.
So the whole team gets back to the hotel. At 6 p.m., I send my first email back home, back to parents at home, because I'm like, okay, now I do have a responsibility. Yes. I send my first email and I say, so it looks like we have a small case of food poisoning. It's about 6 p.m. Kenyan time.
Sure.
So we have 10 kids that are down. At 6:30, I'm sending another email. Well, 17 kids are down.
Deb.
By that night, all but 3 kids had gone down with, I mean, massive. It wasn't like, I've spent my entire life going back and forth to Kenya. So my parents were missionaries when we were little. We've done a lot of work in Kenya. We've taken a lot of teams to Kenya.
Yeah.
And, I guess what we call Montezuma's revenge or whatever, that's common when you go to third world or whatever.
Sure.
Coming out one end. The vomiting actually was the first time that, the full package, vomiting, the diarrhea.
Everything.
It was everything. And it was crazy. And it went on all night long. And so me and 2 women chaperones, Angie Reimer and Joe Lindblad, and then a couple of the guys, we literally were just walking the hotel the entire night. And it was one of those things like all the courtyard is all tile. So it's like everything echoes. So the vomiting, it was like this chorus of vomit all night long. And when you're taking high schoolers, a lot of them had never been out of the country.
Yes.
Let alone away from their parents in this kind of moment. I'm like holding hands. One girl's like, hold my hand, The poor
You're
guy,
hilarious.
the poor guy on night staff. This was the worst. There was one guy for the hotel on night staff. And every 5 minutes we were getting a new text. Somebody pooped their pants. Somebody just barfed all over their bed. We need a bathroom cleaned up. We need more towels. We need every bucket in the entire hotel. So this guy probably cleaned 5 bathrooms, changed comforters. The guy, and he did it with the most amazing attitude. I'm telling you what, he was totally just skipping and walking and I'm so sorry, but we've got this. They're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. He kept reassuring us. And
was he a believer?
Well, Kenya's a Christian nation.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
You meet a lot of wonderful African people who are very strong Christians.
Wow.
The problem was he got every bucket from the hotel, but not every every bucket was, a crate and barrel bucket. We've got some buckets that were cracked on the bottom.
Oh,
and so
my
kids were barfing, putting their buckets out in the hallway, and then puke was running down the hallway. And here's this guy, I've got it. The most beautiful part about that gentleman is, of course, the next day, every single chaperone, we were so blessed by him. We tipped him. Of course, we tipped him what we thought would be a normal tip in the U.S.
Yeah.
Oh, he just burst into tears, and he just was like, this is more than I make in 1 month of salary. And he was like, I can take my kids, my family on a little vacation. And here I'm thinking, we're praying that God would see us through this night. This guy has probably lived a life of just like, God, help me put food on my table for my kids. And so in this moment, right, that God could use this to literally bless the socks off of some guy. I know probably he was praying that we would have round 2 of food poisoning the next night, because he was like, this is amazing. Anyway,
even
so
this. God
that
can
was
use
awesome.
even that.
That was awesome. The last little bit I'll say about the goodness of God and there was it just kept going. But the next day we were supposed to, and this was kind of the pinnacle of our trip, of our service piece. So one of the groups we work with in Kenya is the Boys Detention Center.
Oh.
It's jail. It's juvenile detention. These boys are the most forgotten boys in Kenya. I mean, the government ignores them, basically. They don't have basic hygiene and needs and everything.
Yeah.
And so on this particular trip, I had brought a bunch of soccer players, pretty much the entire starting lineup for the Kings soccer team. And they were so excited to have this big soccer game the next day. So we were going to go to the Boys Detention Center and play this big soccer game. We were going to have our boys share their testimonies and stories with these boys. And anyways, we had to cancel. It was so sad. But I'm telling you, by the grace of God, the only 3 kids that did not get sick that night on our team were our 3 better soccer players. So we sent those 3 soccer players to the Boys Detention Center, and they had a full day of soccer and all the things. We were able to give boys at the detention center all these gifts and toothbrushes and sodas and candy and toilet paper. We were able to give. As soon as those 3 boys got home, you better believe they went down with the food poisoning. And so it's just like, God, you just gave us this few minutes, this day to just say like, okay, I've got everything. And just even thinking like, I've got the whole world in my hands. I've got your little trip from Seattle, your kids. I've got all these kids in Africa who have been anticipating you. It was really amazing. The next day, we kind of, we took the whole day off, and we had our Kenyan pastors come through and anoint every kid with oil and pray over them Kenyan style. And our kids, I mean, if you ask all of them, that was like the most impactful moment for all of them. Several of them are like, I'm healed. I am healed. And several of them said, my son came home and said, Mom, I have to tell you that actually in that moment was the first time I felt the presence of God, physically felt the presence of God. So, I mean, that was amazing.
Deb, tell me what it means to pray Kenyan style. I'm imagining something, but I want to know if I'm right.
The Kenyans just do everything bigger than we do. Yeah. So church is bigger, conga lines, take your chair and throw it above your head. They're cheering with their chairs above their head.
Wow.
Everything is extremely loud. We don't, in Kenya, you don't turn down the drums. You don't cage the drums behind them. They're very charismatic people. So when they pray. And you know what? They've had a life of practice of really digging in, because when you're desperate for God, you really dig in. And so it was very sweet, actually. Every single kid they prayed for, they prayed in a way that really spoke over that kid, really spoke almost in a prophetic way. Yeah. And then, so no prayer was the same. It wasn't like they were reading off of a paper, and then the anointing with oil, I think, our teenagers who are like, well, what about the acne on my head? Like, you're putting oil on my head. Wow. In that moment, though, our kids were desperate. They were in a desperate place. And so they were so like, please pray for me. Please pray for me. And God's anointing in that moment, room to room, was so incredible. And I ended up having a chance to film these prayers and send them back home to parents, because parents were actually really freaked out.
Sure.
We had certain parents who were like, do we need to go to the hospital? We did have 3 kids that went and got IVs, and nobody was on their deathbed at all, but
Right. But still terrifying
Yeah.
when you're that far away from your child.
totally.
Deb, how has this particular trip changed you? Because it's obviously different from your previous mission trips.
Definitely different. There's something that happened before the trip. So we have a security guard here at King's that really
Benjamin
is right. He's
Yeah.
really in tune with, he's a prayer warrior.
He is.
I mean, he's a real intercessor.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 2 weeks before our trip, he came into my office and I was packing suitcases for Kenya. He didn't even know I was the one leading the trip. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm packing suitcases for Kenya." He said, "Why?" We were chatting and he said, "I just want you to know the Lord spoke to me about your trip." And what he said was something was going to happen on your trip. A terrible thing, he said, that was going to happen on your trip that involves the entire team. And it would turn the hearts of the students to the Lord and to each other. That's what he said to me.
Chills.
Okay, I want you to know I was actually super mad at him. I was like, okay, first of all, Benjamin, I don't think you're supposed to be telling me this. I'm leaving in 2 weeks with a bunch of teenagers. And
I get it.
what does this mean? Terrible. And he was like, well, not like nobody's going to die. I'm like, Benjamin, I said, I need you to pray right now that cup passes from me. I say no. Get thee behind me, Satan.
I get it.
No.
Yeah.
And he was like, I know he was like, then he kind of felt bad. And I was like, do not tell any other parent whose kid is going,
Yeah.
So when this all started happening, and I not only told a few people, I told my husband, I told our campus pastor, I told a few people.
Yeah.
When this was happening, my husband looked at me and he said, "You've already gotten confirmation from the Lord that this was going to be a positive thing." So that was amazing because I was like, truly, it felt like a scene out of an Armageddon movie as we're walking the whole night and people are just puking and puking. So we just really prayed into that. Like, God, this is actually supposed to happen. You are going to use this for your glory.
Yes.
You are going to use this in our lives, in the students' lives, in our Kenyan kids' lives. And what we saw actually, so the next day our kids were completely wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
But we had promised our Home of Grace kids that we were going to do a dance party that night. And we had brought thousands of glow sticks. Well, they've never even seen a glow stick. So this was going to be real fun. So I said to our team, you guys are exhausted. You don't have to come. Whoever wants to come. And our kids, our King's kids were like, we have to pull ourselves out of bed for this event because people are expecting us. And so what I would say was the takeaway for me for the King's kids and for our specific students is at King's, we talk a lot about creating resilient disciples of Christ.
Woo.
And, I realized in that moment, resiliency is not going to be learned in the classroom, probably. I mean, God can do anything, but resiliency comes through pain. Yeah, math. Resilience comes through pain, blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes.
And to see our kids recognize this is not about us. This is about them. And I don't care what kind of state I'm in. I am going to go and serve these kids. And you should have seen us at the dance party. I mean, our kids were like barely upright. Wow. They were like, woo,
a sacrifice of praise.
It's a full sacrifice.
Yeah.
But you should have seen the scene. The African kids, I mean, they were wearing glow glasses and glow rings and head to toe glowing. And, it's actually pretty awesome because otherwise you can't see them because it was dark. We were doing it in the dark. So you can't see them. You can see their eyes, their teeth, and all their glow stick parties. Beautiful. And we had music that was so loud. And the joy that this dance party brought to these kids was something to see. And to see our kids just to say, no, I am going to serve someone else in this moment. And so I'm just thinking how can we create more of these moments? Because this is what creating resilient disciples looks like. It's in these moments that our service muscle, our faith muscle gets, stronger.
Yep.
Anyways.
And when you have eyes to see the blessing in the mess. Yeah. Something we have to learn how to do as humans. Well, Deb from King Schools, our sister ministry, seriously, you've had a profound impact on my day to day because you've just got me thinking, whenever something blows up, and, for somebody who's listening today, it might blow up today. There's something good that God has in mind. Yeah. He always has plan B, plan C, plan Z, right? He's always in it. So thank you for opening up your heart and sharing your adventure.
Oh, you're so welcome. It was a really amazing trip. Thank you.
Sounds like it. God bless.